The American Constitutional Republic. Affairs of state in Oklahoma. The beliefs, principles, opinions, and views of people just like me. This is 3D Politics. Featuring every Monday night creator and curator of SoonerPolitics.org, David Van. And, of course, joining us as well every week, founder and scholar at constitutionalgrounds.com, David Oldham. And then again, every week, your director, your mood director and host, Tommy McCay, right here every week, Mondays from 7 to 8 at least, or approximately. We do it every Monday, almost every Monday for over 2.5 years. Gentlemen, welcome back to the state, and everything is now settled in. How have you been over the last week? I was pretty impressed we were able to pull off last week's show on the move. That was a good job.
It was great. It was
great. Hey, I was glad that it was me that was at home and you guys were finally all out on the road.
But 3 different states, that was pretty good. Yeah, Van was really on the move.
Yeah. And I got to say to our listeners tonight, yes, it's true. Tom is being shadow banned tonight by Zoom, but it's because he disagrees with Oldham and me. So
that's right. Oh, yes, you can to humanize ourselves. So the shadow ban goes all the way to PayPal. I had my $340 in PayPal, and since I was on the move, I thought, what the heck, I'll use it. But since I checked in with a different iOS, PayPal said, you are no longer allowed to do business with the PayPal. And I can't touch my money. And I thought, 180 days. How long could that be? 6 months. So, yeah, I thought, well, Merry Christmas to me, you know.
So if you check in from another device, they hold it for 6 months?
I think it's anytime they want. User agreement says we hold your money anytime we want, is what it says. But that's, so I'm writing a little song that goes to their online hold music called PayPal's Dead to Me, like that. Anyway, so Van, Oldham, what happened to you guys this week?
Man, I had a 3-day Father's Day. I had 3 kids. They each got to spend part of a day with me. The funnest thing I did yesterday, I went with my middle son and his son's first time fishing. It was in a pond, and he caught his first fish. And I mean, it was a largemouth bass, and then he got a bunch of sunnies. And, you know, I caught one, and he was up to about 4 or 5. And this little 6-year-old can smack talk. And I'm telling you, I said, listen, buddy, you keep smack talking me, I'm going to play a game of checkers against you and put you in your place. That's the way I play with my grandkids.
Well, that's when a guy like you just starts claiming beginner's luck. I'll see you next time.
In the end, I got him 7-6, but I'm not proud. I'm not proud of some of those that are reeled in.
Okay.
All right. That's amazing.
We got a big show tonight. We're going to be talking about bullies claiming victimhood, prison closures, and a college student that killed himself. But before that, Oldham, humanize yourself.
Well, somebody likes me.
Oh,
you know, I got my trophy cup.
You braggart. You braggart. And it looks like you've got hair and makeup now. Did you hire somebody?
No,
better.
No, just have a friend who's doing my hair. So somebody from Broken Arrow, so changed hairdressers.
There you go.
But no, I mean, the gal that I was using is great. It's just hard to get over there to that part of town. Wrong part of town. So
now that mug there said trophy husband. I want to shout. He is a trophy. At least his wife thinks so. Because listen, at the Tulsa County Republican convention, I cast my votes. I was the last one to cast. I announced him to the whole room, right? And I come up to one of the guys, Cedar, I forgot what's his first name. Anyway, I said, well, now everybody knows I voted for you. What do I get? He said, I'll take you out for coffee. So I go to the back of the room where Oldham's wife is. I said, now everybody knows I voted for you. What do I get? And she says, I'll give you David.
tried to keep you from telling that story last time.
I know.
I'm sorry. I love that story.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. Okay, so
Listen, all it tells you is Oldham married up. That's all I'm saying.
Oldham, your marriage is looking good on you. Either way.
Well, thank you.
So Oldham, let's talk about your story. You sent us this college student. This is from the Daily Beast from June 16th this year. College student killed entire family after dad said, "Find a job or move out." It's not funny, but it's hilarious when a kid, you know, can't find a job or move out.
Well, it's kind of terrifying, but you know, one of the twists to the whole thing is, and I never was able to confirm if the entire family had a political bent that went left, but certainly one of the deceased siblings of the murderer was an Andrew Yang follower.
Yeah, so let me tie this in. Police say Alexander Jackson, 20 years old, fatally shot his parents and teen sister in their Cedar Rapids home on Tuesday. But the kid has another explanation. Alexander Jackson, Iowa student, called police Tuesday morning in a panic, claiming a masked intruder had shot him and his father inside their home. When the officers arrived at the scene, they found his parents and his 19-year-old sister, who had introduced then presidential candidate Andrew Yang during his 2019 visit. So his sister was somehow connected to Andrew Yang and was able to introduce him at the Iowa visit, but now she's dead. And the kid claimed that he wrestled with an intruder, but the police could pretty well easily figure that out.
They saw through that really, really quickly. Apparently it was pretty ridiculous.
In fact, let's just here's a picture of the fine gentleman that was thought it right to kill his entire family instead of give it a job. And you know how I play this, and I talked about that board that couldn't be cut in half until the guy knew how long it was. And I said back then, if we cannot hold individuals accountable, entire nations and institutions must fall. And so if this kid is this bad, I'll blame it on the public schools. We've had 50 years of a failure of public schools to teach, and they're still complaining about we don't have enough recommended counselors. Hey, note to self, counselors are not teachers. It's just real easy.
Are you sure it's not the 80 hours a week of World of Warcraft that he plays?
Really? No, I don't.
Well, it could be that as well. The other thing is, you know, where are the parents parenting these days?
Okay, I get
you know,
this.
They send their kids to public school because it's an easy out from parenting. And so for a lot of them, not that there aren't parents that are, you know, need a hand and so forth, but then come home and parent. But, you know, and again, we don't know. The parents are dead. We don't know what's going on in this kid's life.
Man, what do you got on this one?
Well, keep in mind, we had a couple of boys who right here in South Broken Arrow butchered their family, and only one sister and a tiny baby survived, and that was a homeschool family.
Correct.
You know, I mean, it's like we got to be a little bit humble about it.
Well, there's no group association over individual personhood. Anybody can do anything at any time. It doesn't stand for any group. You know.
Well, what made me catch interest to the story and wanted me to share it with you guys was the fact that that we see yet again another gun shooting, and it's perpetrated ostensibly by somebody on the correct side of issues like this, you know, the gun issue. And it's like, it doesn't matter what your politics are, you know. If you're a criminal, you're a criminal.
Yeah.
And so let's get away from that. Let's talk Americanism. Let's talk constitutional issues and get out of the right left. And that's what really made me think about it.
Tom, if I could speak, I really appreciate hearing that, Oldham, because, I deal with firsthand with a lot of serious mental illness. And I get frustrated when people very flippantly refer to anybody who has a different worldview with them as being mentally ill. It's like how we overuse the word racism. And I like my friend Brian Graham today posted something because on a Facebook group, there is an actual real old school racist that hangs out in some of those groups, political groups, And Brian Graham says, man, with all this changing of the definition of racism, it's good to once in a while hear what a real racism says, so I know what real racism is.
It's not like refreshing in the right sense of the word, because it can't be, to hear a racist talk, but it's like, there is a proper definition, and we can now see what the proper definition is.
But this guy, I mean, obviously he had, very serious, fatalistic, antisocial behavior, right? That doesn't mean he had a mental illness. There are bad dudes in this world, people who just have no regard for other human life. He killed his own family.
One of I mentioned a few weeks back, reading the Booker T. Washington book, Up from Slavery, and he talks about one of the tragedies of slavery in the Americas is that it gave labor a bad name. Because if you did labor, you were lowly like a slave, and the slaves didn't want to do labor because they were forced to do labor. And we know biblically labor is an honorable thing. We take pride in our labor, and we should love our labor, do labor as if we're doing it for the Lord. So what I'm seeing here is a disrespect of basic general labor. The boy is willing to kill over the concept of having to do basic labor. He's been trained for his entire life that he is entitled to have certain stuff, to the welfare state, etc. And so the idea of simply going out and getting a job is beyond the pale. And then this lack of respect for human life that comes from many different areas. When we disrespect life, then it's easy to pick up a .22 rifle and shoot people. I know when I moved to Tulsa from Norman in 1976, right across the street from me, within the year, kid was 16 years old, shot his mother in the head while she was sleeping with a 5-year-old child next to him because she wouldn't buy him a motorcycle. And when he was thrown in juvie hall because he was a minor, he was back into the neighborhood about 2 months later telling us, hey, man, I can get anything you need in there. What do you want? And then he was back on the street walking in a couple of years after murdering his mother. But hear it again, no respect for human life, the entitlement that they feel. And the reason I think it happens is 40 years of the public schools. And when you complain, Oldham, you lit me up when you say bad parents. How many generations in 40 years? Is it 2 generations in 40 years or 1?
2 or 3, depending
on 2 or 3
generations. How you count them.
Okay, so over 3 generations approximately, the parents that we hate today were trained by the schools. The parents of the school system are the children of the school system are the parents of the school system. And so now 90% of all the students in the whole country go to public schools indoctrinated with this stuff. We've got to bust up the monopoly of education. You're listening to the brilliance of Tommy McCay, your fine mood director on 3D Politics, every Monday night. With me is, as always, David Vann and David Oldham. We're talking about a college student that killed his entire family, a movie out of the Daily Beast. So anyway, any more comments on the kid that kills people?
Yeah, I got one more thing. Our public schools are full of people who went to college, right? And what are they telling our kids? You got to go to college. If you don't go to college, you don't have a life. And you know what? College is good for the sciences. But the trades are an honorable profession. I think it's something one of David Oldham's favorite California preachers, Rick Warren, said, there's honor in all work. I knew I'd get a rise out of him with that. But it's true, and I think, Oldham, you agree with that. There is honor in all work. All work has honor.
Right.
And it's important that we understand that, that we respect that. And my God, if your kids want to go into the trades, then you know what? They might end up making a lot more money than you do with your psych degree.
Oh, it happens all the time. One of the things that is missing from parenting and parentage in general is the teaching kids that work can be enjoyable, but it is a curse. You know, the labor is a curse on mankind. And so, you know, it's something that at times you just have to power through. It's kind of like love and relationships. You know, it ebbs and flows in terms of its funness.
It's a curse, but being diligent in your work and industrious is a virtue.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the point, is that has to be taught kids, because you know, it's like, it's not fun necessarily unless you're trained to make it fun.
Yeah.
And there's just not enough of that, you know.
Maturity, discipline, self-discipline.
Yes. And in a direct flip, something I didn't share with you guys over the weekend, but on Friday, I'm out doing my day job, my regular work, and I am down in Sallisaw doing work, and run into a young man around the same age as the murderer. But turns out he is a fan of 3D politics, recognized me, and had seen me in there before. I guess he'd helped deal with things. He's a manager at a retail establishment, middle management, and doing well for himself, working his butt off, and literally had managerial control of the store. He's about the same age, looking at life in a different way, and said, and we got talking about the Constitution and 3D and stuff like that. So we had a great conversation. But yeah, he watches all of our shows. So
that's awesome.
Shout out to Josh in Sallisaw. So
we're on set with the TV star, Tom.
Well, you guys, he knew you too. He knows you. He says he watches all of our videos. But
you know,
just to show the difference, and that there is good out there, that we can, you know, we can have hope that there are good kids.
Yeah.
We're told, we're calling them where they are kids.
We've got some great friends. The Bennetts live in Sallisaw as well, John and his wife. And some great people. In fact, even Al Gerhardt's from Sallisaw. So there's that.
So when it comes to labor, you guys will help me start up the McCay School of Toil. That's my new. I have this great idea where we teach children the benefit of toiling. You know, and you can start at the very young age. You know, kid, carry this wood. You know. All right. So moving on, Bullies. Headline from Soonerpolitics.org. Bullies claiming victimhood for political gain. June 20th, 2021. By now, it says from the article, you'd have to be in deliberate denial not to see how victimhood is a weapon. Last night, a purported gay man in Fort Lauderdale disrupted a homosexual festival with his violent crash into fellow attendees. And then the leftist mayor, Dean Trentalis, declared an incident as a hate crime directed to the gay community. Then what happened, Van?
Oh, yeah. Then it just so happens that one of the organizers of this festival, who's a choir director of a gay men's chorus in Fort Lauderdale, came forward to the media and gave a very responsible disclaimer. He said, the mayor's wrong. He said, the two victims and the suspect are all members of the choir. Okay. And
oh no.
Yes. And it wasn't just the two dead victims, but all of the victims, the injured and everybody else.
No, you may be conflating this with an Arizona incident, because this had two victims. This
had two victims. Okay.
Yeah. There were a few incidents over the weekend.
Okay.
But in this now, the mayor last night went to a vigil where he publicly apologized. He said, you know, my brain went straight to a narrative of, you know, terrorism because we were gay, you know, and he said, I was wrong to jump to that conclusion.
Now, is the mayor gay?
Oldham's like,
yeah, I may have misconstrued that. He did not say that.
Okay.
Those of us who were at the festival, because the mayor was at that festival too,
right.
as was Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She barely escaped getting hit herself, according to eyewitnesses.
And a state senator as well, a Florida state senator.
And but it's that using victimhood as a weapon. Politics on the left does this. Wasserman Schultz is very effective at it, and so is this mayor. Because, I'll cut to the chase. Several national media outlets carried the mayor's fake news narrative.
We don't want fake news.
That's right, Donald. And so anyway, they carried the fake news because it garners further sympathy for the homosexual causes. And he says, and proliferates a, quote, boogeyman, which will be used later in political attacks on anyone who opposes the radical left agenda. That's my point. That's
like
what
you said, it's like you said earlier, is the meaning of the words is totally lost. Racism has nothing to do with skin tone. You disagree with me, you're a racist. I mean, it's because you're a racist. That's why.
I mean,
so Tom, what you just demonstrated is you get it now. You are woke. You understand the new definitions.
Yeah.
I'm a feather boo-boo. That's why.
Words just don't mean anything anymore. Being a woman or being a man is a social construct, right?
I have a Facebook spat with our best loved libertarian here in Oklahoma, as you know. And he describes, say, for instance, a chair without using the word chair. And then I say, okay, well, that's a chair. He says, well, you're misconstruing my words. It's like, I'm literally identifying what you say. So he says, I claim that the state is the authority. I'm claiming that literally starting now, the state is the authority, regardless of what the libertarians do. And then he says, we're going to have, now I'm paraphrasing, I'm sure I'm misconstruing, but he describes a state entity and then says, but it's not the state. This is, you know what I'm saying? So it's like you describe a chair without using the word chair. And I said, well, that's the same thing as the state, except for you're just not calling it that.
Yeah. But, look.
Well, my point is, it's the ruining of the words. He's pretending like he can call a chair something else and try to call the tail of a dog a leg. And what is it? Well, it's a leg until you try to walk on it. And then you find out it's a tail.
Yeah.
Man, what
Well, even right now they're debating over something they call infrastructure spending.
Right.
And it's being used to fund daycare for parents, subsidized. That's not infrastructure. Right. Infrastructure is what we normally call capital improvements, durable, improvements, such as building a road, right? Or building a building or a new school or, whatever.
Well, remember that in the federal system, log rolling, earmarking for pork projects and everything else is fully okay, and that's what ends up happening. You're going to see that this multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure thing, 3/4 of it isn't going to be infrastructure or more. Isn't going to be infrastructure whatsoever.
Bouncing checks is okay when you're the federal government. Counterfeiting money is okay when you're the federal government. The rules don't apply to them.
No. Well, and that's where we are working to change that from the local level. And that's where what we've been talking about is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so anyway, getting back to this, today, now there still aren't publishing the name of this guy who was driving the truck, because it wasn't him. He's 77 years old, and it was the truck that killed him, not the gay man.
Well, did they say what range he's in the choir? Is he a tenor or a baritone?
I don't know, but
that's important.
But now they're all convinced that this was accidental. Now, really, how many of the Black Lives Matter protesters blocking the interstate bridges, and some of them get hurt, and they want to beat the snot out of the truck driver, assuming that had to be intentional.
But because
he's a gay man, it was not intentional.
Well, I mean, is there a chance that it wasn't, and he was?
Oh, it could be.
He had one of those episodes, and
right. I'm just looking for the consistency with which we're going to, judge all matters the same.
It doesn't take a conspiratorial expert to see that if all three people were gay choir members, I think we got a lover's triangle there.
Remember, Tom, a black man cannot be a racist because he doesn't have the power to be a racist. And you could say the same's true of a gay man.
Klobuchar's ranting on Twitter about how we got to get rid of this arcane filibuster rule. I had verified by Oldham, our constitutional expert right here on 3D Politics. The filibuster rule literally protects the minority voice, and they're trying to crush it.
Well, it does. It's also not constitutional. It's just a senatorial rule. They can do whatever they want with it.
No, you didn't say. Wait a minute, Oldham. You didn't say it's unconstitutional. You said it's not constitutional.
No, it's
Explain
just
that.
not in the Constitution, and so they can do whatever they want. Rule. Now,
it's the discretion of the Senate rules.
Correct. The problem is what they want to destroy the filibuster over is purely unconstitutional.
Yes.
Okay. Whether it's, Senate Bill 1, which is going to be a federal takeover of the all elections, irrespective of the Constitution, which says that the state legislatures control their elections.
Right.
And that's all elections.
Yeah, but I'm going to argue with you on the Supreme Court number of justices being 9. That's not stated in the Constitution. That's a discretion.
Oh, no.
That's a discretion of the presidency and the Senate.
Oh, do you know why we got to 9?
Oh, Abraham
because
Lincoln
FDR wanted to pack the court, and we went from 6 or 7 to 9. It's already happened, and the Democrats were the ones that did it. It happened under FDR, and the communist socialist Democrats at that time did it because they wanted FDR wanted to make sure that his illegal actions were protected by a packed Supreme Court. So we've got 200 plus years of this kind of thing happening from John Adams and his packing of the court, which is why we got Marbury versus Madison, to a packing of the Supreme Court for at least the second time. I think it was the second time, or maybe it was the first time under FDR, and now they want to do it again. So, yeah, there you have it. And it's all to protect illegal actions of the government, federal and state, that they are doing this, primarily federal, that they are doing this. They want to protect these illegal policies and these illegal laws that they're instituting. Remember that FDR was saying you could only grow 19 acres of wheat, and he wanted to control, how much produce was created by any particular grower, and to kind of, from what he said, to even things out. And it's like, that's the wrong solution constitutionally. Maybe it needed to happen, but it was the wrong solution constitutionally. But he wanted to protect things like that, and especially the New Deal and Social Security and so forth, and he got his wish. And we've been stuck with it because they've upheld illegal laws.
I'm looking at history.com. They say
FDR,
no,
David Van's a fact checker. Hey,
FDR wanted to bump it up to FDR wanted to bump it up to 15, and he was blocked.
Oh, he was controlled, but he got to 9 because of what I was saying. He wanted more.
Well, and a precedent for that, Lincoln bumped it up to 10 after the Dred Scott decision.
I always hated Abraham Lincoln. Well, you guys are listening to the brilliance once again of 3D Politics. Tommy McCay, your fine mood director and host.
That's what we do.
As well as the two bickering Davids. We've got David Oldham and David Van. You guys go away. We're going to set it up again to talk more about the prison closure and the fiscal win for OK taxpayers.
You're CNN, you're fake news, you have an agenda.
Damn, I'm gonna break that button. So
I see you, Tom.
whoops. So much for that.
Okay.
The American Constitutional Republic. Affairs of state in Oklahoma. The beliefs, principles, opinions, and views of people just like me. This is 3D Politics. Featuring me, your fine host, Tommy McCay, and David Van from Soonerpolitics.org, as well as David Oldham, your fine founder at ConstitutionalGrounds.com. Camera's rolling, Elvis. Remember that part of the movie?
Yeah. All right.
So, hey, thanks, Red. So here's how we do that. So we just killed over that whole story on the gay pride crashing. I will say I was listening to NPR as I was doing my travels, and they were talking about the gay pride parades, and it was an all kind of a gay host. And they were complaining that now that they've been accepted by the heteros, that the gay pride parades are being infiltrated by straight heterosexuals bringing their kids to enjoy the parade. And they're kind of upset because all this work that they've done to become accepted is really backfiring because people are coming out to enjoy the parade and not supporting them for the reasons they want them to support them.
Oh, yeah.
What?
So they're now, the gays are mad that the heteros are accepting them. They don't, because, and here was their logic. Remember when we were gay and they said we were on the edge and the fringe of morality? And we said,
my God.
And we said, no, you must just please accept us. Well, now when the kink community is what they call them, we're having to tell the kink community to tap it down a little bit for the parade because the heteros are bringing their children.
Oh, Tom.
Okay, so the gays are feeling like they're having to gate their own kink community, and that's not what they stand for. And I'm like, bring out and grease the goats.
Tom, I got to say this.
The plus stands for.
Let me bring color to this, okay? Because Rush Limbaugh said back in the 90s that the homosexuals are their own worst enemy. It's their parades where they parade out the most bizarre people, and they try to outdo each other, these gay parades, right? So it's June 1997. I'm taking my young family and my wife and 3 kids to the East Coast. And here it is, Sunday morning. We get up really early. We're in Philadelphia. We drive the Jersey Turnpike to go see the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island. And we get there first thing. We're back in our car at noon. And I say, Debbie, that's the bridge right there into Manhattan. Let's just drive over the bridge and go on into New York. And she says, oh, the kids are tired. We got up at 6 o'clock. We want to go back to the pool and swim in Philadelphia. Okay, so I turn on the radio on the Jersey Turnpike. Big news and traffic jams in lower Manhattan. It's Gay Pride Day parade. And it would have been just my experience. I would have been stuck at a roadblock there and have to watch Queer Nation go by. Right. And yes, Queer Nation, because that's the name of the organization that helped put on that parade.
Yeah, it was.
They called themselves Queer Nation.
Yep. They were the organizers of the Manhattan parade for years.
Yes. Yes.
Before Pride Month is over, can we get the gay community to get a cod piece for the Golden Driller? You need some sort of bump at all, anything. Really.
But I got to tell you, that was my concern. My God, my kids would see things that they are not ready to see. And that I really can't explain, or do I want to explain to them?
So Deborah Gist, a Tulsa Public School superintendent, she put up a frame and a thing behind it says, I'm welcome you as bisexual, transsexual, all these sexual terms. And as the superintendent of children, I ask on my Twitter feed, shouldn't that be like predatory behavior?
Yeah.
That should be labeled as sexual predatory behavior, advertising literally to children about I welcome you sex.
Well, here's
literally,
the thing.
she's advertising for sex with children.
Well, here's the thing, and this is what every employer needs to realize. It's sexual harassment, because she is putting sex out there when she should just be, a kind of a teacher mother figure, and just put herself out there as an educator. That should be what we see from her, but that's not what we see from her. What we see from her is hanging, sexuality, hanging out. Well, I'm going to advertise my sexuality. It's like, nah,
Sick.
you know what? I don't want to know about that stuff. TMI, sorry. and if it makes me uncomfortable, it's sexual harassment, right?
Well,
it's all about me and what I feel. It's not about, what really might be going on. It's really about what I feel.
Well, no wonder the kids need a counselor when you got the superintendent hounding you down like a thirsty dog all the time.
Yeah, and by the way, another thing, it's not just Deborah Guest. You hear what our mayor, G.T. Bynum, just did.
No.
I think he's...
Okay.
Oh,
he moved Veterans Park over onto Peoria Avenue, and that much made sense. But he had to name the old Veterans Park to the Dream Keepers or something like this. He says, to honor one of our most important communities, the Native Americans. And I'm like, great, he's honoring me, somebody born in America. But that's not what he meant when he said Native Americans.
Dream Keepers is not, that isn't.
Dream Catchers? Is it Dream Catchers?
That's more like
Yeah, it's Dream Keepers. And because that whole Dream Catcher thing, he says that's actually common to several of the Eastern Oklahoma tribes. And so he said he used a phrase that united all of the Native Americans, right? He means the Indian tribes, okay? North American Indian tribes. That's the way our federal government actually labels them, okay? Because we all know Native Americans means anybody born in the Americas. Now, getting back to that, he called them one of the most important communities in Tulsa. Well, who are the less important? That's what I want to know, G.T. Bynum. And why are you designated some parts, some demographics more important than others? You David, big racist. That's a big racist.
Dang it.
You are part of the least important community.
No. Yeah, because I get on to a racist mayor about his racist comments. That was flat out racism.
So, as we know, though, as all progressive socialists and fascists is what G.T. Bynum is, they're always looking to sever any ties to the roots. Remember how important Alex Haley's mythological story of roots was? And the reason he called it roots, well, it's actually... Anyway, there's a lot of myth involved in this story.
Oh, I'm sure there is. It was a compelling story.
I just learned that from Thomas Sowell, right? So, but the point is, the roots is the name of it because that's how important tying yourself to your historical relevance is. And so, what they're doing by renaming the schools, renaming the parks, changing the holidays, all these things. When Fauci says that these lockdowns will probably be seasonal, what he means is on all of your normal American holidays, they'll try to crush it. Thanksgiving, Christmas, all of your basics. So they're trying to do everything they can to unseat the past. Because if there is
the spring flu season when they're going to close everything down is going to happen on MLK Jr. Day. So
not only are we court packing, we're holiday packing.
Yeah. And I said also, let's define the word holiday. And why is the government establishing a religion? Let's get them the hell out of holy days. It's none of
I know,
that's
really.
what holiday means.
Right?
Holy day.
All right. All right. Let's move on to this. Prison closure signals a fiscal win for Oklahoma taxpayers. June
Yes.
17th, 2021 from soonerpolitics.org. A minimum security prison is closing partly because we're sending less people to prison. Why aren't we celebrating? The other news outlets lament the terrible news of the closure of a minimum security prison in Fort Supply. Is that what that's called?
Yep.
Yes.
Fort Supply,
Fort
Oklahoma.
Supply,
Fort
Oklahoma.
Supply.
Near Weatherford.
It scores a huge win for taxpayers in the criminal justice reform effort, because that's really what this is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It
Tell
is.
us about it.
Yeah, and listen, this is a primer, folks. Okay, 3D Politics is providing us a free service. This is one of the ways you get to find out, is your media source part of the problem? Because almost every TV and commercial news media is considering this a terrible thing because it's going to decimate jobs in rural Woodward County. 169 jobs, and it's just going to be terrible. And now we got Casey Murdoch and Przowski, or however Polish name. Excuse me, my Polish. I'm part Polish, okay? So I'm sorry I butchered somebody's name, but our state rep up there.
You don't even go by your full last name because people can't pronounce it.
If that is your real name, there you go.
Yeah. But anyway, so they're just talking about this is the worst thing in the world because we're not getting that government money coming in. And I'm saying, folks, if your economy is based on government spending, you're in the wrong economy. And I'm telling you, it goes nowhere good. And this is the same problem we're having with the education industry in this state. Because anytime we bring down or don't raise spending, we're seen as decimating all these economies. Well, yeah, the education's taking up about 1/7 of our Oklahoma state appropriated budget. And we've got to see this for what it is. You don't build economy. You can't tax your way to prosperity.
Sorry. This is your story, Van. And from what I understand, though, the complaint is that they're going to lose the prison workforce. Is that correct?
Yes, those are the jobs.
So one of the points I want to make is that if you're going to close down a prison and you're against it, there might be good reasons for closing down the prison, but losing your slave labor is not one of the good reasons. I mean, literally, you could pick another reason that you don't want to close it down, but because you need the slaves is just not a good look at all.
Yeah. Now, I got to say, none of the reports that I investigated really went into, are there services that we are losing because of this? Because I have one that I'm very interested in. This facility in Fort Supply helps those who are judged not guilty by reason of insanity. And I actually have some close friends whose family's affected by this. And part of getting them, when we get them well enough, we actually send them to Fort Supply for that reintegration. Remember, this is a minimum security facility. And it's so remote, it's so far away from anything. This is one of the ideal places to have it. Are we going to just cut those reintegration services? Because you can't set up people for failure. We're finding this out in all of our criminal justice reform. Heck, the governor's wife just had a great bill she helped get passed through that set up so when you get ready to leave prison, the prison actually gives you a state-issued ID card that's not expired. Because if you know what kind of hassle it is to get a job, you need an ID card, you need a social security card, you need all this crap, and so we're setting up these people for failure by not providing them, what they need to hit the ground running. And so we've got a lot of services that actually save us people ending up back in jail by doing it right. Because we messed up their lives. We've interrupted their lives. Some of them, hello, David Oldham, there's some people that shouldn't be just because they choose to take a drug that their doctor didn't agree with.
Well, yeah, when we're talking about a pretend crime that isn't by any definition a crime.
Yeah.
we not only owe it to them, we owe them recompense and so forth, but that we'll have to get into that.
Yeah.
But but there are real people who have committed real crimes.
Yeah.
And are really crazy.
Yep.
You're listening to David Oldham, founder of constitutionalgrounds.com, along with David Vann and Tommy McCay, 3D Politics, every Monday night. We're talking about prison reform, criminal reform. It says here the use of prisons as a restrictive timeout punishment for criminals is also a punishment of taxpayers to the tune of nearly $25K per inmate per year. Is that according to this particular prison? Or is that
that's our latest state numbers. We try to get it below that, but it's and that's just direct expense. That doesn't include your kids in foster care, or your wife and kids are on sooner care, and then they're getting food stamps and all the other things.
Because they don't have a way to be able to support themselves, because the breadwinner has been removed from the family.
Yes, and one of the other things I want to say is prisons should be for people who are dangerous, people we're afraid of, not just people we're mad at, because there are plenty better ways that we can extract the kind of security matters we need. Take an ankle bracelet, or a boot, they call them, ankle boot, and somebody under house arrest. Well, what have you just done? Even if they don't have an income, maybe some of them work for them, maybe some of them are set up they don't need to work, okay? There are those kinds of people too, but at least they're helping raise the kids. At least they're in the family unit. They're building that family connection. And, so there are ways that you can do criminal justice where, it doesn't cost the taxpayers so much.
All right. So what about, go ahead, Oldham.
Well, I was going to say, I love hearing David talk about that, because, how many years have I been talking about this? But this is a political decision. This isn't a constitutional decision. When we are talking about actual criminals who have been adjudicated by and judged by a jury of their peers, and they've had full due process. So the question is, how do we deal with them? And we as Oklahomans need to have a discussion on this topic.
We do.
And we have to revisit it, because the way it has been done for the last 100+ years ain't working. It just ain't working.
Yeah, and we are the highest incarcerated society in the world, the United States, and Oklahoma is right up there in the top 3.
Correct.
Yeah, and so what I want to say
top
here,
one for women.
We were until Stitt released a whole bunch. I mean, like about 500 of them got out. Thank God. But what I'm trying to say here is there's plenty of creative ways for youthful offenders. You might say, you know what? If you can survive boot camp in a full term enlisted in one of our armed forces, we'll consider that 4 years as equal to 5 years in the slammer. And now they got incentive to actually survive 4 years in the military.
And they could come out with a clean record, actually a good record, and have a leg up.
Right. Or alternate community service, where you say, you can't just sit on your butt in a jail cell, or we can give you this other thing, repaying the debts of society. There are plenty of ways. One of the things we need to do, and I'm talking to you legislators, is you've got to free up the judges the right to use their own judgment. They're called judges for a reason.
Right.
Let them who sat there for hours and listened to the case, they know a lot better than you do, Mr. Legislator, Mrs. Senator, what might be the work. And I'm just sick of these one-size-fits-all mandatory minimums.
And we're a couple of minutes, guys.
Yeah. Well, and just because we're on this topic, we also have to revisit the fact that constitutionally, there is slavery remaining in America.
Yeah.
And if you remember, the 13th Amendment allows slavery for the punishment of crimes.
Yes.
And that's the only place. Now we have to be careful of peonism and all that went on through the South and so forth with the dragging men off the street and especially poor and black men and claiming that they were committing crimes and put into chain gangs and all of that, which was purely bogus.
You cannot create a business incentive that rewards putting people in jail.
But the point is, people repaying their debt to
Yes.
the people they have harmed is vital. And
Yeah.
they are not doing that when they are sitting in a jail cell. They are leeching at the very least. And they are causing further, there's downstream effects that we are not talking about, that we have to start talking about.
Yep.
So we have to
you
keep
guys,
these people productive.
We are headed out pretty quickly, and before we do, at the bottom of the hour, I want to remind everybody that this weekend I am headed to the Oklahoma City Freedom Rally. Featured speakers as General Flynn and Jackson Lawmeyer. Lawmeyer is going to take on Senator James Lankford for his seat. This is all happening this Saturday, June 26th at 4 p.m. at the Embassy Suites Conference Center, 2501 Conference Drive, Norman, Oklahoma, hosted by the one and only amazing Clay Clark here from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So that is this Saturday in Norman, Oklahoma, and we are fighting for Oklahoma values with Jackson Lawmeyer.
Yeah.
So let's not forget that. So we've just got about a minute. Anything else before we get out of here, guys? You want to wrap it up at all?
Well, I tell you, I'm going to have some good news here in about a week or two. I've got an interim study I'm working with a couple lawmakers on. It's going to be on restoring our state mental health infrastructure so we can get more of the mentally ill from being put in the county jail in the first place. Because I'm telling you, there's hundreds just in the Tulsa County Jail alone that are there on some kind of a process crime, and it's mentally ill, but the cop just needed to get them off the street, didn't have a bed in a mental health facility, so they're going to spend 90 days in something trumped up and get no mental health treatment. And so it's going to be restoring a state function, but it's to take a load off counties and cities.
You know, I've been for a long time, I was basically and generally against the death penalty based on the fact that Jesus doesn't run the guillotine. If someone with moral values, and then there's the Avery case, Stephen Avery, who 18 years for a crime he didn't commit. We don't really know. And so it's not right that we put people to death, even when they're guilty, I guess, in some cases, in the extreme case. However, when you get a case like the Hinckley issue, and here's a guy that's mentally ill, but I believe that even the mentally ill can get a message of conditioning. You can condition the mentally ill too. It's one thing to commit a crime and be not guilty according to reasons of insanity, but if you try to shoot the president, you know, I mean, we've got to send the message, I think. What do you think, Van?
No, I tell you, and you can't just say the mentally ill are mentally ill, because I mean, I've never met two mentally ill people that have the same condition. However, when you're ruled not guilty by reason of insanity, you essentially get a life sentence, because then you are immediately put indefinitely in a government psych ward, and it's a penal psych ward.
No, I mean, Hinckley, though, is now working at a bookstore or something. He shot the president.
He sat in jail, you know, for 30 some years before he could even get to have some time away. And keep in mind, this is a guy who's now being treated and had showed some incredible, regaining of the cognizance he had in his youth, cognizance he didn't have anywhere around or during the time in which he committed those murders.
34 years in a jail cell doesn't sound so bad to the mentally insane. I mean, the guy, what I'm saying is it sends a message of condoning the behavior when we allow this guy to get out after trying to assassinate the president.
I have yet to find a single person who faked a mental illness and got a judge and jury to agree that he's insane.
Well, by the same token, I know of people who had a mental card and used it to their advantage and said, I've got a card. I've got a mental card.
So, I mean, one of the problems we have is these, they talk about holding a guy like the low level cop that has knee on Floyd. And that's what we're upset about is the low level cop. No, we're worried about Eric. What's his name? Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. Hillary.
Yeah, I know, but you keep in mind, just having a mental illness is not the same as being mentally insane. It is a very severe psychosis, which gets you even close to being able to support a defense in a courtroom of insanity.
And what I'm saying, and I'm even challenging my own long-held belief that I have been against the death penalty. What I'm saying is, in extreme cases like assassination of the president, you off that guy regardless, because even the mentally challenged can be conditioned. You don't shoot at the president, and people need to know that regardless of their mental status. Am I off the edge again?
Yeah, well, 98% of those with a mental illness do not have insanity. Okay. It won't work for you.
I'm making a more
and I have been a critic of the whole thing, which started with the Brits of this innocent by reason of insanity. I have been a critic of that for years and years, you know. But again, that comes down to a political decision.
Let me ask
you
guys.
To have that discussion.
Okay, you guys are fathers. I consider you both good fathers. Have either of you guys had one of your kids throw up all over the sofa and you spanked them and stood them in the corner even though they had 104-degree temperature? No, you wouldn't do that. They were sick. They didn't have control over their behavior. Yes, they upchucked, okay? But they had lost control of themselves. Sure. I'm going to use that as my analogy. You know, you wouldn't. That's a sick person that needs help. They're not deliberately destroying your furniture.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, I can understand that. By the same token, anyway, we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would bring up manslaughter right off the bat. You get punished for manslaughter. You didn't mean it. You still got to pay the price. I'm
correct.
Sorry.
No, they do. They go into a facility for the criminally, you know, delinquent.
Oh, believe me, you know, yeah, there are things people have ended up because they were ruled not guilty by insanity. It wasn't capital cases, but they've actually spent more time in the mental hospitals of the state than they would have in the prisons had they not been ruled.
Oh yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
So yeah, it's not a get out of jail free card. Well, it's an indefinite thing.
Like I say, they hold the keys to their own cell, and they won't let them go. And so, nor will they use them, and so they stay in there way longer.
No, listen, I've been around a lot of people who are committed to mental institutions. They do not hold the key to their own cell. They're desperate.
I mean, if they got control of their brain, it may not be possible for them to. But the point is, if that's what the analogy is saying, is that if they came around, they could get out.
Right. Well, yes. You know, if their sick brain all of a sudden started working, but you know what? When General Patton slapped up a guy with shell shock, it didn't get rid of the shell shock, and the guy was helpless to get rid of it himself. I mean, there are things, and listen, that was one where the guy truly was a victim of the war, and we have far more than that now, serving multiple tours in the Middle East. Our PTSD numbers are out the ceiling. I mean, it's unbelievable, the PTSD we have now. And we did that to them, folks. It was our wars that sent them to that.
We're going to have to talk about all that.
I had a brilliant friend of mine suggest that we needed what I'll call an anti-boot camp or reverse boot camp. And we harden these guys up to go do war, and then we bring them back and stick them in society. We need to bring them back and reboot camp them where they hang out, drink beer, get fat, mow the lawn, and don't do crap but work on motorcycles all day long until they're you know, it's like taking running a horse and then walking.
That's true, Tom.
Very good.
They needed a lot more after their third tour in the Middle East. And I'm saying is World War II was less than 4 years, right? We didn't send them on multiple tours.
The actual hostilities, yes.
Well, right, but what I'm saying is when we deployed these hundreds of thousands, we didn't deploy them over 15 years, 3 different tours, like we're doing with a lot of our young men.
Right.
You know, and so this is a problem, and it's a problem that we're making by having these mercenaries, and that's what they are. You know,
Well,
they are hired soldiers. And, you know, and we're finding out the real cost of war. We don't find out until years later, you know. So
you're listening to David Vann from SoonerPolitics.org, the creator and curator there, expert on Oklahoma state government and those seeking mental health care. Also, David Oldham, founder and scholar at constitutionalgrounds.com, always bringing us the constitutional focus. I'm your comedian, political humorist, and mood director right here at 3D Politics. Guys, what else you got? There's our theme music.
One more thing, and this is serious, and then Oldham had something. I'm getting ready to teach a class to families caring for a loved one with mental illness. Look, folks, I'm on Facebook. If you're watching this, you probably know how to get a hold of me. We have people have paid for the classes, paid for the books and everything. If you need help taking care of a loved one with a diagnosed mental illness at home, I want to help. There are organizations of people that want to help, and we have classes going year round, and I'm getting ready to teach one with a co-teacher. It's just going to be fantastic. Reach out to me. We're going to start early July, and we want to help you. Thank you.
And where do they get a hold of you, David?
Like I said, you know, the Facebook or my email. If they're watching me on 3D Politics live.com, it's all on our website.
Okay. And David Vann on Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay. Oldham, what do you got?
Well, next week I will not be here. I will be speaking with the OK28 group in Mays County. Excellent. And so I will be out there. I'm working on a new story to me. You guys may have heard about it. A man who was harassed by the Adair Police Department.
Oh, great!
On a traffic stop where his wife was driving and he was the passenger.
Yeah.
And so I just found it last night. Working on reaching out to him, maybe meet up with him when I'm in Mays County next week.
Nice.
But Tom, you'll have to share everything about what we do this weekend.
Oldham.
So
reach out to Al Gerhardt. He's worked with them extensively, and I've actually good friends with one of the attorneys in that case.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Al Gerhardt actually has some blog posts pertaining to that. I'll give you some good background.
It was back in March.
When yeah.
Okay.
If we're talking the same case, yeah.
Yeah, it's just in the last couple months, but apparently I want to follow up and make sure that the city is actually taking appropriate policy steps and reining in, potentially
the city of Pryor.
No, this is the city of Adair.
Oh, okay.
And
at least it's not Locust Grove. Do you hear what happened in Locust Grove? They just arrested the chief of police. He's a drug addict, and he's been stealing drugs and firearms
from the evidence locker, right?
Well, or maybe just out on checking out people's homes. I don't know.
Well, he could be confiscating things and then not putting it in the
there's a lot of
into the locker.
Can't do that, Oldham. It's against the rules. They literally won't let you do it. Okay?
Yeah, we'll call the police.
Well, if drugs were easy to get, he wouldn't have to do that, would he?
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have a reason for stealing them from everybody.
If they would just comply, he could have it without stealing.
Yeah. But it's town of Adair,
Adair. So it's something I'm working on. It's a new story. To me, it's been going on for a few months.
Yeah.
Some people that I know a number of the bloggers that are involved in it.
Good.
In getting the word out. But this guy has a YouTube channel, and it's his story, and that's the only thing he has up on the YouTube channel. He's becoming a viral YouTube sensation out of Adair.
All right.
Go onto YouTube and just YouTube Adair Police, Adair, Oklahoma Police, and this guy's stuff will.
Will you post that YouTube onto 3D Politics Facebook?
I will
page?
As soon as I get it worked out. I want to verify a couple things before I put it up, but I will put it up this week.
And I'll need the routing number, and the last 4 digits is your social. Also, post those. Guys, what else before we get out of here?
No,
for me.
Is that it? Well, there you go, kids. Once again, another episode in the can of 3D Politics every Monday night right here on Facebook Live with me, the Verbal Viking. You can catch me and find me at verbalviking.com. And David Vann, our curator and creator of soonerpolitics.org. Find him on Facebook and at soonerpolitics.org, as well as our constitutional focus from David Oldham at constitutionalgrounds.com. We're going to miss you next week, David, but good luck on your speech. And this is me, Tommy McCay, your fine mood director right here at 3D Politics. We'll see you guys next week.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
3D Politics Live.com.